want to talk with you, brothers, today a little bit about a topic that's been on my heart, and that's really time, energy management, energy dispensement. All of us have 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, and we only have so much energy. I know I love learning from you, brothers, because not only are you guys church planners, but you're also amazing husbands and fathers and athletes as well. Shout out to Noah, the CrossFit champ.
Family, multiplication, restoration. I'm Dahadi Lewis. Join me, Noah Oldham and Hayden Radner, as we come to you from Atlanta, St. Louis, and Las Vegas, as we seek to add value to your church planning journey. We'll have real-time, authentic conversations that are relevant to the life of the church planner and pastor. Join us as we hear from leaders of this movement from across North America and discover what it really takes to plant churches everywhere for everyone.
We just want to welcome you here today. I'm Hayden Radner from Las Vegas, church planting pastor, Walk Church. And we also got two of the best to do it. Pastor Noah Oldham from St. Louis, Dahadi Lewis from ATL, and three different church planters from three different parts of the nation. And we're leaning in, talking church planting, talking vision, leadership, strategy, all types of stuff. So hit that subscribe button, share this thing, and we're going to jump into the content here today. I want to talk with you, brothers, today a little bit about a topic that's been on my heart, and that's really time, energy management, energy dispensement. All of us have 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, and we only have so much energy. I know I love learning from you, brothers, because not only are you guys church planners, but you're also amazing husbands and fathers and athletes as well. Shout out to Noah, the CrossFit champ, right?
I appreciate
Noah,
that.
did you do a Murph after Memorial Day? Did you do a Murph on Memorial Day?
I
Noah?
did. I actually got a PR this year too.
Crushed it?
Yeah, the best I've ever done.
What was that?
It not very good. So,
All right, yeah. So, it takes energy. It takes time. I've been reading this book. It's by Paul Tripp. It's called Lead. And I've been walking our staff through it. It's talking about gospel principles around leadership in the church. And one of the sections he just talked about was limits, and how all of us have limits on our day and on our energy, and where we give our energy matters. I also think about Paul's words in Ephesians 5, where he says, make the best use of the time because the days are evil. And so, it's summertime, and we're talking about that. And we're talking about, hey, energy management. I'd love to hear from you, Noah, just when it comes to using your time and energy. I mean, you could give it toward sermon. You can give it toward leadership development. You could give it toward lost people. You talk to us about energy management in your life these days.
Yeah, man, I had to learn this a few years ago, really, really dramatically, in the fact that I can't do all the things. I want to do all the things. I want to be all things to all people. I want to be everything to every person, I feel like sometimes. And I can't. I mean, I got 5 kids. I pastor a church. I serve with the Send Network. I'm a husband. I have hobbies, all these things to stay healthy. And I realized that if I'm going to be the best for everybody, I've got to be maximizing my time in the things that only I can do. And so instead of trying to be every other gift, I had to realize, here are my giftings. And when I'm doing these things, I'm at my best, and I'm allowing everyone else to be at their best. For instance, one of my, not only my roles, but one of my giftings in my church is preaching. It does not help our church as a whole for me to say, I'm going to give up time in preaching so that I can take more time in shepherding. Shepherding is not one of my natural gifts. I need to then raise up shepherds and give them the authority and responsibility to shepherd so that I can spend my good energy on preaching so that I don't run out of margin, and then everybody suffers. We're going to suffer because we don't have the best people shepherding, and then preaching is going to suffer because our best preacher is not preaching. And so I had to learn that there's a couple lanes that I have, and I need to fight for whatever I can to make sure that I can give my best energy to those lanes so not everything suffers.
That's really good. Yeah, and I think, being able to give the stuff that we are best at I think is good, because I think the pastors oftentimes think that we try to become Renaissance men where we are able to do anything and everything, and I think each and every one needs to kind of defined in that area of giftedness. And then again, it doesn't abdicate us of our other responsibilities that of the pastor, but it is like where we are more gifted, it gives us the opportunity to empower others, so that we don't have lopsided mini-me's of ourselves, and I think when we're able to do that, I think
Yeah.
it's really critical. One of the things that I would even say, I mean, Hayden, you mentioned the idea of, not only what do we give our energy, but you also mentioned what season that we're in. And I think it's important for us to distinguish, like, there's not always different seasons brings different times of where I got to spend my energy and my time. It's not like year round, I'm always doing
Yeah.
this the most. Because there's certain times that I'm gonna do other things. And so
Mhm.
like for us, this season for us is a development season. And so I'm spending a lot of time talking to my leaders and checking in with them, seeing where they're at, and like, hey, are you ready to re-up? We're going to a thing right now where we're asking our leaders only to commit for a year, every year, and really we're asking our leaders to commit for 9 months, and it's like we're going on a
Mm.
mission trip for 9 months, and we need you to lead for 9 months, and then at the end of that time, like we're gonna stop and we're gonna, hey, where are you? What is the next step? Can you
Wow.
re-up again? Like, let's celebrate you, and then because the problem, what we found is like there's that, every single year is just like if they're year after year commitment, at some point they're gonna be tired and fatigued. And it was like there's no off ramp. So it was just like if we ask them to re-up every year. And so this season, I spent a lot of time doing that, right? But then, there's gonna be another season where I'm spending a lot of time where I'm doing a lot of the
Mm.
communicating preaching. So it's like, but so right now in this season, I actually have a lot of like our residents preaching and other people, because I'm going to be spending more time
Yeah.
on the leadership development and the leadership re-up. But then, so it's
Mm.
just like the seasons for me, there's an ebbs and flows that's going to come based upon whatever season is needed,
Yeah.
for us at the church in that time.
Great.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah. I love that. Kind of makes me think of, this is going back a few years, but it makes me think of when LeBron James joined the Miami Heat, and Dwayne Wade, he said in the press conference, this season's going to look different for me, but I'm okay with that because it's going to
Right.
help us win. He even said, I'm even open to taking the
And
kind of
that's like any
a
like the
second
Nets,
seat,
Harden right
right?
now.
And
I'm not
you
a
know,
huge Nets fan,
we
and
got
I'm not really
yeah,
a big
yeah,
Harden fan, but I thought like Harden is like getting
right,
multiple assists. And
right,
he's like, man, everybody knows Harden can drop buckets anytime he wants to, but he's
yeah,
decided to give dimes and instead. So
yeah,
it's kind of like, yeah,
sure.
this is a part of being able to know. So yeah, I'm 100% with you with that.
Yes, you different seasons require different stewardship, different energy. And I think that, awareness is key with that, right? Just being aware, and sometimes even having other people on your team speak into your
Yeah.
season. And sometimes it's you need some other elder pastors or people on your serve team to say like, "Hey, we think you need to preach more," or we think that you may need to, give some energy to this area because it's kind of on fire right now.
Yeah. It's
And
good.
being open to that. And so, yeah, I think that management there is key. This is going to sound super spiritual. Let it sound that way. But I felt like this has been a season where God's taken me deeper in the area of prayer,
Yeah.
the school of prayer, right, and even helping our church and myself understand the power of being a praying pastor, giving more energy to that. I've been learning about this topic, the first 15, right? The first 15, maybe not giving an hour to it. Like I know Martin Luther said he needs the first 2 hours. I'm not there yet. But if I could start with the first 15 minutes of the day, that's an attainable goal. Sometimes I just need to feel like I accomplished something. And maybe that first 15 may look like 7 minutes in the word, 7 minutes in prayer, and a half. That's 14, right? But I guess what I'm saying is, for me as a lead pastor and a disciple maker, I need to first be given energy management time to prayer. Another thing that I once remember hearing a leader in my life say, he said, give your best,
Hmm.
and let your best do the rest.
Hmm.
And I found that that's always been just like a tension of mine to like spend a good amount of time invested in a handful of leaders that are next level leaders. I think in a way we've seen Jesus do that, in his way. He didn't call all the people to be his close disciples. He called 12, and I think he gave the 12 his best, and they went and turned the world upside down. And so
Yeah.
I've been processing that. I know that's something that you guys do well. I know, Dhati, you're not only doing that with people at Blueprint, you're doing that with guys throughout the country that are connecting with Boulevard and doing cohorts with you. You're constantly doing Zoom calls, helping guys get better. I feel like you model that, Dhati, well, given the some of the best leaders, even in the Send Network, are learning from you guys on that. I love to just go deeper into that subject. Even Dhati, I love to just have you speak to that drive, that energy in your
Yeah.
heart to say, you know what,
Well,
I need to
Dr. Howard
deposit
Hendricks,
into
the
the
late
next
prophet, Dallas Theological
wave of
Seminary, used
leaders,
to always say there's a lot of things that you can do, but what are those things that you must do? And, for me, the must do has been, for me, the
Great.
idea of like discipling leaders, right? Like my thing it's always been about discipleship. You've heard me talk about disciple making is not a
Yeah.
ministry, it's the ministry. And the idea of modeling. And for me specifically, I have a personal desire to influence the influencers, right? And that's really where I get passion and desire around influencing influencers. And so throughout all the different roles that I've had with the North American Mission Board, throughout all the different seasons that I've had in my life, there's one thing that I've always been doing. Even from we planted the church in 2010, in 2011, we had our first cohort, of just guys, of church planners, because that's just a passion that we have. And even to this day, we invite 8 couples from across the country, and I do a church planning cohort and training leaders each and every year in doing that, because it's something that I'm passionate about. And so, you talk about, like, for Noah, he was just talking about preaching. For me, it's like, no, I gotta invest in leaders. I have to pour into leaders. So even at Blueprint Church, I spend most of my time developing the next generation
Mm.
of leaders, and just pouring into them in that specific way of just getting that one on
Great.
10, or one on, there's that small cohort type of feel in doing that. And that's where I spend the bulk of my time, here. And that's the stuff that keeps me
Yeah.
up at night. I'm thinking through. Because again, like, I was a pass first point guard, growing up, when I was playing on my high school varsity team. That's the highest I got. Some of us can't be, we can't
Nice.
get to that pro level, but on that high school varsity
Let's
basketball
go.
team, I was a pass first
Let's
point
go.
guard, and I got more excitement getting laying a addition and assist than I had scoring. I was trying to create my own shot, and so, like, even when I drive, I look to pass first than I was to shoot. And so I get excitement for that. And so to influence influencers, I think, is really critical.
Mm.
And so a lot of my stuff kind of shapes out of that. Like, how much I preach, how much I do first comes out of that. And I think that's some of the freedom that as lead pastors we got to feel, because people told me when I first started, like, you got to preach every week if you're going to be the lead guy. And I was like, nah. And so, like, for me, the most I've ever preached in all the years of Blueprint, and we've been in for
Wow.
12 years, going on 12 years now, the most I've ever preached at Blueprint was 32 times. But I usually get around between 18 to 24 times in terms of how I preach, because my primary
Wow.
influence, yes, I love preaching and I love communicating, but I love discipling leaders even more. And I think that and I just became really okay with that.
It's
Mm.
good. Yeah.
That's so good because, right, like, Jesus, he's the best preacher in the Bible, and he's also the best disciple maker in the Bible, and he's the best at reaching lost people. And I guess what I love about that is, Noah, in his role, he's saying, hey, my primary gifting that I bring to this church is preaching, and you're giving energy to that. And Dhati's saying, my primary gifting that I bring to Blueprint is disciple making, leadership development. You're giving big energy to that, and both are right.
Yeah.
And I think being a leader who's able to say, you know what, here's unapologetically what I bring to the table. I got to be a star in my role. I can't. It's the whole. I got to take off Saul's armor, and I got to be who God's made me to be. And when I'm doing that, I'm at my best. And giving energy to that too, I think, will
Yeah.
will build you up. Even on a little different tip, for me, I'm a creative leader, um, and a doer. And so I'm always dreaming and vision. I have to have people around me that are like, hey, hone all those dreams and visions and thoughts and ideas. And I'm grateful that my wife really balances me out in that area. But even for me, I'm such a creative that as of late, I felt very much this need to give energy to some of these different domains like fashion and creative merch in our church. And I want to design stuff. And I even really recently tapped into like songwriting. And
Hmm.
I, I felt like, man, like I can't do those things. I got to like give my energy to these specific areas. And then I realized, like the Lord was putting those things in my heart,
It's good.
and I needed to be obedient to and give, not just be obedient, but I needed to give good, not just leftover energy, but good energy to some of the things that God was doing, and really allow other people to run in lanes that sometimes I feel like, no, I have to do that or I have to be that guy. And I've learned that God's raising up people to do
Yeah.
it. I think sometimes we just have to have eyes to
Yeah.
see it, or just even trust that it doesn't have to be me. And the Lord will honor that.
Yeah, and
And
sometimes we're not going to
That's
have
good,
eyes
bro.
to see that, Hayden. I see so many church
Good.
planners, they don't see it themselves. They don't discern it. And what I think we all need a Jethro. Go back to the story of Moses.
good.
We all need a Jethro. Who's a Jethro? Jethro is an older, wiser dude in our life that is not impressed with us enough and loves us enough to not let us or the mission burn out because of momentary success. So Moses has got this thing,
Great.
he's leading, it's all popping off, but he looks and says, hey, you need to slow down and create a system here, or you are eventually going to burn out. You can't do this forever. And the people, the mission's going to suffer. And so I think sometimes in church planting, we have all this momentum going and we're running a mile a minute. We have adrenaline, we have caffeine, and we're just going. And we need somebody to step alongside and say, hey, I love you enough to tell you the truth that you are limited. And I want to help you
So good.
maximize your potential
Yeah.
in this mission. And I'm so thankful that I've had those people in my life. But I think that every leader, no matter how awesome you are, you need someone in your life that is not impressed
Yeah.
with you, because people who are impressed with you won't tell you the truth because they don't want to hurt
Great.
you. And so someone who loves you and is not impressed, that will say,
I
hey,
think that's really good.
let me
And,
help
and one
you
of the
see
things
what your
in
eyes
that,
can't see
because a
right
lot of
now.
times we look at it from one side and
Mm.
saying, like, let people like help you. And I think what you're saying, Noah, is really good in the fact that we also need to do this, though, when it comes to our strengths as well. Because it's real easy for me to be like, man, I'm going to disciple every
Yes.
single person,
Great.
every single leader. You got to come through me and I'll become the funnel. Or if I'm a preacher, I'm going to preach 52 times a year and I'm not going to, and that's the problem. Because the thing is, going back to that story that you said in Exodus 18,
Right.
we always read that like in a way, what if Moses actually really loved sitting and judging the people? What if that was actually his gifting? What if that was actually what, man, this was what I was made for? And he was getting energy and he gets excitement and all that. He was just like,
Mm.
still, even though you're gifted at it,
Yeah.
even though God has touched you on this, even though
It's
God has
good.
appointed you for this, you still need rhythms of rest. You still need systems because you cannot handle this on your own. And I think oftentimes that even if I had
Wow.
every other area in the church covered and all I had to do was just leadership development, I still need to share that platform. I still need to raise up other people, and I can't only be the bottleneck. And I think it's really important for us to understand that we need to make sure that we're lifting
Strong.
others
Strong.
up, and empowering others. And that's really what I love when Jesus was like, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And if you
Yeah.
recognize
Yeah.
that the very things that Jesus was doing in Matthew 9:35 and 36, when he says healing every sickness and disease, is the same things in Matthew chapter 10:1 is that he empowered his disciples to do. He didn't empower them to do the stuff he didn't want to do. He empowered them to do the same stuff that he was doing, and that even
Yeah.
though he was more gifted and more talented to do it, he knew that if the mission to
Mhm.
move forward and the mission continue, he had to also raise up others to do it as well.
Wow.
It's good.
Love it. Love it. So good. Well, hey, how about we wrap up with this final question, just a quick one. I shared a resource earlier, this book called Lead by Paul Tripp. We'll go Noah, then Dahadi. Give us a resource that's helped you in this area of energy management, productivity, something in that arena.
Yeah.
What's that been for you, Noah?
Leaders Who Last by Dave Kraft. It's a book. On the front of the cover, it's got a graveyard. And man, leaders burn out, they flame out, they fail out, and because I don't think they manage their energy. They don't put it in the right directions. We can do too much, or we can not do the right things. Like King David, instead of going to war, he was surfing the internet, old school style.
Wow.
And so I think we need to maximize that by Leaders Who Last.
I would say it's gonna name one author, two different books.
How about you, Dahadi?
The guy's name is Greg McCown, and he wrote one book was called Essentialism. We're talking about where do you give your time, and he says we got to stop giving our time to 7 and 8s. We got to give our energy to 9s and 10s. And so he talked about essentialism and like what are the things, and we mentioned earlier that only you could do. You mentioned that. So that's one, is the book Essentialism. But the other book that he wrote, which I think is also a great book, is called Effortless, right? And so on one, how can we not, because a lot of times we feel like if it's not hard, we didn't earn it. Like we got to earn it. It's got to be hard. No, he's like be essential, but also give your life mostly to the things that are effortless. Or how do you make even hard things more effortless? And I think both of those books, because we can just be about essentialism, only doing what we can do and burning ourselves out. But the second book that he wrote after that is a good also resource to talk about everything doesn't have to be hard. So effortless. So Essentialism and Effortless, both by George McCown.
Love it. Love it. Well, hopefully you got some great resources for you to consider. I know that all church planners and pastors, team members are living in the tension of time and energy management. I think it's a good thing. It creates God dependence. It creates asking good and tough questions. And hopefully this podcast has been helpful for that. As always, you can share it on your social medias or text it to somebody who you think may benefit from this. Please hit that subscribe button. Maybe even leave us a review. Let us know some of the highlights that this podcast has been for you. If you want to know more about the Send Network, hit the website, sendnetwork.com, or you can text 888-123, the phrase Send Network, and we'll give you a follow-up with the information that you need. So 888-123. As always, we are Send Network. We look forward to hearing from you, and we'll be back at it next week.
You have been listening to We Are Send Network, a resource of the North American Mission Board. For more information about today's podcast and other relevant resources, visit sendnetwork.com.